Game over. It is game over.
Game over, cancer. I'm Val Solomon, Director of Program Impact at Cannonball Kids Cancer Foundation.
And I'm Dana Nichols, Executive Director of CKC.
Game Over Cancer, a podcast dedicated to exploring conversations about pediatric cancer research, solutions, and inspiring family stories.
We're a nonprofit dedicated to creating innovative treatment options for kids fighting cancer and educating for change.
By creating a space for these conversations, we empower the community to take action and provide tangible hope.
Game over, cancer. Screw you, cancer.
Today's episode is all about grace, specifically the daughter of our guest, but also the grace you can give yourself. So we're going to dive into what happens when a family experiences cancer treatment, but then leans all the way into finding cures for pediatric cancer.
We had a great time talking to Aubrey and, that idea that you can walk away after and try and heal and live your life, or you can dive all the way in. And she certainly has, Grace has as well. It was so fascinating to hear from a mom trying to navigate the teen years with a cancer survivor and the good, the bad we get with that, and just get to hear about their lives.
She's a great advocate. She fundraises for cancer research, and she was a delight to speak with.
Absolutely.
So we hope you enjoy it. Our guest today is a proud cancer mom and cancer wife. She's the co-founder of With Grace Initiative with her daughter, Grace, an associate director of development for Rutgers Cancer Institute. She's a cancer research fundraiser, which is how we met.
We've met some of those.
We've met some of those. She's also the chair of the New Jersey Commission on Cancer Research Pediatric Committee, a board member for the Coalition Against Childhood Cancer. She's happily married, 2 kids, 2 dogs, 2 cats. She does everything in twos. She's talking with us today.
Thank you for being here.
Welcome, Aubrey Reichard-Eline. Did I say it
Hello.
right?
You did great. It's a doozy. And of course, I choose to hyphenate because why not? Make it complicated.
Thank you so much for being here. I do want to kind of go back and just bring everybody into how we met, because we have now chatted via Zoom several times, but at CKC, when we are trying to recruit research grants and try to get our research opportunities, our grant opportunities out there, we reach out to people. We meet a lot of folks who are working at foundations at hospitals and universities. And we ended up on a call where we were talking about the kind of grants that we offer, and Aubrey was talking about the kind of research they do. So it was really great. And when you do this for a long time, there's always a little thing that fundraisers like to do at the beginning of calls where you're like, well, what's your why? Why do you do this? And there's like 3 or 4 maybe different stories,
Yes.
right? And then Aubrey started talking about her background and what made her get into helping researchers find money to fund their research projects. And I was blown away by her story. So we thought we have to get her on the podcast. We have to talk about the stuff that's going on at Rutgers. We have to talk about the stuff that she's doing personally along with her family. So that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit of the background, just your story, your cancer story of how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
All right. Thank you. And thank you guys so much for having me. I'm honored to be here and hopefully serve the childhood cancer community that you guys are so good with by being here. So thank you. I'm honored. So my background kind of starts with 20 plus years in the fashion industry, doing all sorts of things, branding, marketing, yada, yada. And always kind of wanted to go into nonprofit. Never really kind of pulled that corporate needle out of my arm. Would interview through the years for various organizations, from like the Heart Association to the YMCA, whatever. Nothing ever really jived, so I never really did it. And then after a couple of years of my daughter, like a light switch one day, drinking a lot of water, abnormally, like crazy amounts of water. Her growth slowed down when she was always off the charts, the tallest. We went through a bunch of different things, finally met an endocrinologist, and after several months of tests, did a brain MRI. And in April of 2018, my daughter Grace was diagnosed with a brain tumor. She was 9 years old at the time. Never did I ever think that was coming. I can tell you more about that, but I remember the We had just come back from Disney World on a Sunday because it was spring break that Monday. We went for her brain MRI, and I remember checking in. They're like, "You're here for your brain MRI?" I'm like, "It's a pituitary MRI." They're like, "That's in the brain." I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
I felt like a really bad parent because I didn't Google the hell out of it. But she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So, as some know, if you're in this, then lots of pokes, prods, tests, the whole thing. To get to her diagnosis, she had germinoma. It was a tumor around her pituitary. It had to be dealt with. And so we started our childhood cancer journey with my daughter, Grace, at 9 years old. She went into chemotherapy and then radiation. And she is now 15 years old and no evidence of disease. So super, super thankful for that every day. Through that journey, realized that there is so much that can be done in the childhood cancer world. So I kind of started to navigate that and make some relationships there. Grace and I started doing a lot of advocacy for this cause at the state and federal level, and kept going. And I ultimately ended up consulting, leaving my corporate job and consulting for a childhood cancer charity, and doing that community engagement and advocacy things and loving it, loving it, loving it. Through that process, my husband was diagnosed with a rare form of lymphoma because it's always a party in our house. I researched it. Neither are related, and neither are linked environmentally because I was going to burn my house to the ground. But I didn't need to. And he got treated just like Grace at Rutgers Cancer Institute. And he's 2 years out from that treatment. And through that process, I said to the head of the Cancer Institute, "I don't know what I can do for you, but I know I can do something." So through that process, I realized cancer was my thing. I didn't need any more signs from the universe. I'm like, I got it. I'm doing the cancer nonprofit thing. I get it. And I ended up with my development role, which is fundraising for cancer research at Rutgers Cancer Institute. And on the side, my daughter and I and our family really started a foundation with Grace Initiative because she wanted to give back in a kind of really specific way. So we run her charity on the side as a way to give back. And now my day job, my non-day job, my fun, which sounds probably really weird to people. It's all cancer, mainly obviously childhood cancer. But that's what I do. And I'm honored that I had the journey that we had. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I'm happy that it pointed me in the right direction and really clarified what my life mission is. And I kind of remind myself every morning when I get up and I'm like, all right, set the plan for the day. Like I'm thankful for this journey and to be able to do this work.
Wow, we all have a lot in common, just talking about cancer all the time and living it in our homes too. I wonder if you would take us back a little bit to, even just the idea of coming back from Disney World and, oh, we got to go get this one test done. And like then that, oh my gosh moment, this is cancer. Because I think there's so many times where we can be like, especially in motherhood, of maybe I'm overreacting or it's just one more thing I have to go do. And then I can't even imagine this. Okay, it's one more test. Something's a little off. Oh, it's brain cancer. Could you take us back there a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. And when we had started our kind of journey with the endocrinologist, our pediatrician, who was great, all along the way, he's like, nah, it could be diabetes, but you'd know in 2 weeks if it was diabetes. She's just active. It's all good. Don't worry, because statistically speaking, the odds of it being cancer is in no one's line of sight, even our endocrine. So when we went through that process, and I don't know if it was also my body or the universe, like just protecting me, that I didn't do more research. But yeah, we went, and that day I was working in the city, and I was going to go in after we dropped her off. We knew the MRI took extra long. But again, didn't think anything of it, whatever. I was going to go into the city, decided not to. And I remember where I was sitting at my counter on a call. And the doctor called, and she could barely speak. She's like, "You need to, can't do this over the phone. You need to come in, get your husband. You need to come in, drive carefully, but you need to come in right now." So I call my husband. I'm like, "Meet me there. Doctor, the doctor's really," and we go, and I remember as soon as we got there, they brought us in. I was like, okay. There was no pause. It was we got off the elevator and they were like, whoop. And to this day, when we go to the office, I can still see the chair next to her desk. I literally remember all of it. And when they said it's a brain tumor, I was like, I literally had like an out of body experience. Like, I literally think I like flew up, was looking down, like, what is happening? Because, right, yesterday we were in Disney World thinking, all right, I'm like, thank God I didn't make this appointment for before. We would have been like the Walking Dead at Disney World. But I complete out of body, because never in my line of sight did I think that it was going to be cancer, much less a brain tumor. You know, my brother says to Grace, well, Grace, go big or go home. You got a brain tumor. I should warn you guys, we use a lot of dark humor. We did before. We use it even more now.
Yes.
But
we're about to have a podcast episode with someone who makes like a living at using dark humor to help her get through her cancer.
Yes.
This is all welcome here.
It's the only way. It's either that or curl in the corner and cry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to use it. But yeah, total out of body experience. I remember asking too, I'm like, so is it like the one that you can like deal with? Like, or like it's just there and it just kind of hangs out? She's like, no, you need to deal with this. I'm like, and she could barely speak. She had already talked to our pediatrician, who we've known forever. So he's like, you know, he was beside himself. She gave us a sticky note, which I still have in a folder, of the name. She had already made us appointments with the neurosurgeon and the neuro-oncologist for the next day. It was numbing. It was out of body. It was, you know, those movie moments where like everything changes, like without warning in an instant, 110%, because no way, shape, or form did I think they were going to say, hi, your 9-year-old has brain cancer. It was, I mean, to this day, I get like shaky about it, thinking it, because it was nowhere in any of our line of sight. And she wasn't having traditional symptoms. Like, she wasn't having blurred vision. She wasn't falling, having headaches, any of that. Like, she looked totally and completely normal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And so then you went from a person who was like, oh my gosh, I didn't Google any of this, to now I have to Google, I have to learn everything. The doctors are asking me what I want to do. And now I've got to become an MD in this, in my childhood, in my child's cancer. What was that like? I mean, because in my mind, you were in fashion. Now you're in fundraising for pediatric cancer research. So that has, in my mind, been a process for you, consistently always having to learn more and more. So can you tell us a little bit about that, both as it started for you and Grace, but then going forward too?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember like we got back in the car and we're just kind of like, my husband and I were like scanning, all right, who do we know in medicine? Who do we know possibly in like neurosurgery? Who do we know like, and my husband, like I remember like us sitting at home that night. I've already gotten to bed, and I'll go back to prior to that, but he sat there and he turned to me, he's like, okay, no matter what happens, we have to make it a good ride and we have to be us. And I said, and I feel like that carried with us so much, because we got home and had to be normal for them. Like, we couldn't show to any of the kids, you know, I just said, hey, G, like, we're going to have, you know, some more tests, you know, some more doctors tomorrow, and didn't really articulate to her like what was going on yet. But tried to be as normal as possible, because didn't want the kids to see us like bugging out, you know, like, you know, like it just, you had to like try and be as normal as you could for her, for my son, for each other, while all of a sudden trying to become this person to best serve Grace. Like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, and start to do all the research and find out all the things. And it's really hard because you end up with multiple jobs, because you're trying to be this mother and wife and friend, and you're trying to be this strength for your child, but you're trying to be, exactly as you said, Val, the expert, and make the ultimate best decisions that you can. The good news is with us, again, the next day we already had some more information so that we could start moving and grooving, and what are the next steps, and that pile of paperwork they gave us for tests and things like that. But we're already, like, we were in a really good place in northern New Jersey to get cancer, apparently. So we already started kind of like putting feelers out every which way to navigate that. And it's just a really hard place to be, because yeah, you're trying to be this doctor all of a sudden. Oh yeah, and not only for your family, but I'm trying to keep my day job, because I don't know what the hell is going to happen long term. So, and God love the fashion industry. There's a ton of really caring people, but at the same time, it's a little like, oh, you just stabbed me in the eye, but you just hugged me earlier. I'm so confused. But that's, it's like a really hard place to be in, to be trying to maintain my day job, which is very intense, and be there for Grace and keep everybody calm. It's a lot. And actually, one of the things, like after Grace finished treatment, I vividly remember this boardroom we were in, beautiful windows, overlooks the city, and everybody's kind of fighting over really silly stuff. And I wanted to take everybody by the ear and just walk them down Fifth Avenue to New York Presbyterian, the pediatric oncology floor, and be like, this is where we need to be fighting, not that stuff. And that was like another one of the light bulb moments. Like, I'm not going to spend the rest of my days doing this, even if it means our family needs to make different cutbacks financially and all that. Like, I just couldn't do it. I was like, we're done. But it's hard because you're in all these different roles. Like, you're trying to work, you're trying to make the best decisions. And it's so true. You sit there and you're fielded with all these really big words and all these really big decisions and all these really big papers you have to sign. And I'm like, I'm not qualified for this. And you read them, and my husband's like, just stop reading them, just sign them. Because you read them and you're like, oh my God, but what are my choices? Here's a rock, here's a hard place. What are my decisions? I got to sign this stuff, and we got to keep it moving to help her. And it's really, it's hard. It's like constant schizo kind of.
Yeah.
I hope that answered it. I don't know if
It
did. Are there side effects that Grace deals with today? Like, what does health and life look like for her?
Thank you for asking. I think this is a really, really, really important thing. And actually, Grace and I advocate a lot for this. So we're really fortunate. If you looked at Grace today, you'd never know. You would never know she had a brain tumor. You'd never know she did multiple rounds of chemotherapy, proton radiation of the brain. You would never, ever know. Super thankful. What that looks like, though, is multiple medications every day, because she's, pituitary insufficient, thyroid insufficient, all sorts of things. The original like diabetes insipidus that she developed and was getting diagnosed with before they found the tumor is still there. So we navigate that through medication, but we're lucky because, again, if you look at her, you'd never know. We are constantly monitoring. She's now thankfully down to once a year scans. But pretty much every other month she's got blood work. We are regularly BFFs with our endocrinologist. There's the constant awareness that she gets a headache and she's like, oh, I have a headache, whatever, and she's like, it's okay, Mom, right? I'm like, yeah, totally. And in my head, though, I'm logging it because I'm like, okay, is this day 1 of 3? Is this what is, I'm logging it. I'm like, oh, is she drinking more? Is she sick or lethargic other ways? Like, always logging. So it's like that constant kind of vigilance. And as she ages, the reality of like oncofertility and all of that's the reality, which I never thought of before. And we're navigating things with that just to give her, the best balance on life that she may or may not want to have. So it's constant. And I realize this is long story, not short, but the survivorship piece, something we advocate a lot for, especially in childhood cancer, because the length of, not that it's not important when a 70-year-old gets cancer, but their longevity and their risk of side effects, yes, is there, but not necessarily the same way. Where with Grace or kids that are diagnosed, the side effects from not only their original tumor, but the treatment that they got from a chemotherapy perspective or a radiation perspective, there's that constant vigilance that you have to have because their length of life is so much longer. And some of the side effects, especially with radiation, might not show up for 10, 20, 25 years. So her doctors are constantly telling us, you have to stay vigilant, even if 10 years down the road, there's been nothing. So we're constantly watching that and living with the endocrine. But I would say, this is why, and it's a strong thing, I don't even know why I'm bringing this up, but like the bell or whatever, like you mark the end of chemo, which is an amazing accomplishment. And you mark the end of proton radiation treatment. And that's an amazing accomplishment. And happy, yes. Do you fully exhale? No. because it doesn't end there. And that's what I want people outside this community to know, that it doesn't end when your hair grows back or you finish that treatment. And I want the people inside this community to know that we see you. I mean, the work that you guys are doing, and all of it, that we see you, that we realize that it doesn't end when the hair grows back and you finish chemo. We see you. And I think that's something that Grace and I try and really advocate for, that the survivorship piece, like super lucky, super fortunate, because we know not everyone gets that. And there's still a journey there. And I think it's things that the community needs to be recognized for, that we see you and that is part of it. And B, people outside of that need to understand that it follows these kids and these families their entire lives. And I don't mean that in a bad or negative or Debbie Downer type of way. It just is. So we work hard to navigate, how do we take the steps each day, knowing that it is like that, just it is. So it's something that we work with together as a family. Because even my son, he was little when she was diagnosed, and she goes for a test or whatever. He's like, is she okay? I'm like, oh yeah. It's just, whatever. Or the orthodontist, and he's still like, wait, what's she doing? I'm like, it's her teeth. It's okay. Yeah. But that's the reality. And I don't mean to sound dramatic, and I'm not, it just is. And that's what we navigate. So I think you're also learning. I'm not always the best. I'm usually not necessarily always long story short. Sorry.
This is great.
This is amazing.
This is that's why we needed a long form podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think that's so much of it is we always are like, here's your social media post, here's your email, here's your letter about this issue. And there is so much going on. And even what you're talking about that's exactly why we have this podcast. So we'll keep our long story longs. I've never told a long story short. Val can tell you that. So
they're entertaining though. I like them.
I wondered if you would talk, because you touched on it a little bit, of then now you have a daughter, so blessed to have a daughter who is going through puberty, who's a teenager, who's this, we keep moving forward in our growth, which is amazing to watch our survivors do that. But what's it like navigating the teen years with Grace? Because you have two hands here, right? You have a teenage girl, always going to be a thing, and then a teenage cancer survivor as well.
Yep. Thankful. One is Grace is an old soul, and she was kind of born that way. So I, knock on wood, I think teen would have been good because she was naturally an old soul. Two, it helped cuts through the BS a little bit. So it's a lot to navigate because it's emotion. Not gonna lie, it's stupid girl stuff. It's all the normal things. Am I gonna make the field hockey team? Mom, can we not talk about that? Because I'm going to, okay, no, I'm just gonna get out of the car here, a block away, and walk over. All of that stuff is there. And I'm thankful, and I'm like, and I call her out. I'm like, hey, that was very typical teen girl, Grace. We kind of have that thing. So there's that piece. But I think navigating it with her, there's an added complication because of her medical history. And, she goes to a camp that's not a cancer camp, and she has all these meds she has to take, or injections she has to do. So she's not normal. So navigating kind of the mental health piece of that, which is there any way for teen girls, or should be,
right.
Navigating how to deal with that. But it's extra there because she has so many other things, or she's missing school again because she's, going for a scan, and they only do peds in the morning, and she's got to be there for whatever. So there's that whole piece. But I think that part is hard because we're constantly kind of navigating how to message it in her head to make her resilient to maybe some of the chatter that might be there, because thankfully no one else in her group, school, friends have navigated this. So I'm thankful for that. And it's hard. So we navigate the mental health piece a lot through therapy and just talking and open relationship. But it also helps because she can kind of pause and pull herself back from some of the silly stuff that goes on. She'll come home and she'll be like, oh, Mom, you should have heard what they were talking about. I'm like, did you engage? She's like, I don't know. It was silly. And I'm like, part of me, I'm glad that it's silly conversation, and I'm proud of her that she can kind of pull back and I don't know why they're all in a lather over that really silly thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where she's like, keep it moving, people. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. You know, like, so it's like navigating, yes, the hormones and all the like, hi, you're different. And how do we navigate that and message that so you're not, you know, looping in your head? And thankful because she doesn't engage in some of the really stupid stuff
Yeah.
Yeah.
because she literally lost 3 friends last
Right.
fall. Literally. Like, I don't know. I went to high school. I didn't lose any friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She lost 3 friends to cancer that she had met on the cancer journey.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So it's good and bad. It's, you know, like good from the standpoint, it helps her, I think, put things more in perspective. And it's, you know, challenging because we're constantly kind of trying to navigate in her head, like what's the dialogue. So she's kind to herself. Also takes the time that she needs. I'm like, it's a lot. You know, I always tell this to everybody. I'm like, it's a lot. Feel your feelings and then rise up. We said that when Grace was in treatment. We continue to do that. And I try and give that grace to Grace, not my daughter, Grace.
Right.
In general,
Yeah.
to other people to like feel your feelings. It's okay. And I do that for her a lot too. And we do so much advocacy. I always ask her, are you okay doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And she's like, yeah. And she's like, I have to because she lost so many people along the way. She's like, I need to be their voice. And I love that about her. But I also want to give her the space that if she doesn't want to today, that's okay. And she knows that she can say that. And that's good. And it's funny though, if you met her and she was talking about her background, like being new at school, she wouldn't bring up the cancer thing. She wouldn't bring up that she runs a charity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She brings it up and she's not ashamed of it, but she doesn't, like, she's so humble and quiet. And I said, Grace, always keep that. Keep that. It's a beautiful thing. Don't ever lose that. She'll bring it up, you know, at some points where it's relevant, but it's not like the thing that she wears on her sleeve. You know, because she's like, some of these kids don't know me and I kind of like that, you know, like where Grace, you know, other times, like, you know, from her middle school, they know her. So, but she won't necessarily put it to the forefront, unless, not because she's embarrassed, she just doesn't bring it up unless, you know, something warrants it. Like she did a presentation at school and they were like, oh my God, that was really good. You've spoken before. She's like, yeah, she's spoken like at Congress. She's like, you know, like it's funny. And I'm like, all right, that's another thing, Grace. Like, don't never lose that.
Yeah.
You can just get up. Like,
Yes.
But she's humble that way. So it's a lot. Like it's a lot of, you know, navigating the silly stuff and her journey, I think, has helped her navigate that to not kind of sweat the small stuff. So don't like that she came through that, but thankful that it has helped us with that perspective. And some of her friends' moms are jealous because we have such a close relationship. Now, I work on that. It's a separate podcast about me and my mom, but anyway, and like, but B, I don't know. You lay in the hospital with your kid hooked up to all this stuff, you know, days, nights, weeks at a time. Yeah, our relationship is on a very different level. And I'm thankful for that. Not thankful for the pain she went through, but I'm thankful that we have that relationship and she can come and talk to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I mean, one of the things that I know we wanted to explore a little bit in our conversation, because so much of your life is focused on cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're illustrating it a little bit for us here, but can you talk a little bit about some of the specific things that you all do? You're involved in advocacy. This is your job. This is like your passion. How do you cope, I guess, with dealing with it all day long? And I heard you talk a little bit about, you know, giving Grace some grace.
Yeah.
But can you talk about like what's that like, going to work and having to hear about pediatric cancer all day?
Mm-hmm. No, thank you for acknowledging that. And it wasn't overnight. And I still work on it. Almost like working on also giving myself grace and a moment to pause when I need to. But I gave myself grace to accept it. That when we left treatment, yeah, she finished treatment. I feel like we never truly left because whatever. I still am texting with her oncologist every day for fun and for legitimate things. But anyway, when we left it, it's a weird thing. And I think most people will say that too. You come out of it and you're like, okay, all right, we waited for this day. I'm out of treatment. Everything's going to feel like the day before it all started. And it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, okay, now what? You know, and that journey evolves every day. But I say I have learned to give myself grace in what that journey is. And with that, because it's different for everyone, some people don't want to look at it ever again, and that's totally okay. And some people sort of want to, like, once a year, and that's okay too. And some people like are consumed with it, and that's okay too. I've given myself grace and acknowledged to myself that it's a part of my story, and I am proud of it. I am grateful for it, and I own it. And I felt relief when I allowed myself, and again, for my journey, that this is what I'm going to do. So I'm not only going to be a cancer mom, I'm now going to pivot my career and do this all the time. And I gave myself grace to accept that it's okay, because I was like, oh, should I just be pushing it away? You know, some people are like, you should just stop talking about it. Okay. Or, you know, like, and I did. I gave myself the permission to be like, nope, it's part of your story, and it's okay if you own it. And that helps me. And it's hard because I go into the clinic and I see everybody and I know everybody, you know, and my heart hurts when I see newbies come in, or I see a relapse. Yeah. Or I learn somebody else we met is most likely not going to make it through the weekend. It hurts. And I feel that every time, and I acknowledge that, and I use it to empower me that, all right, this is why I'm doing this work, because not everybody chooses to do this, and that's okay. But I'm owning it, and I'm going to do it. And sometimes I pick books that aren't cancer related to read, and then I get really proud of myself. But it's, yeah, I'm like, I'm in it. I give myself permission to be in it and own it. But then also, you know, definitely designate times where we're not going to talk about the C word.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's in our house. Like, there's parts of it, even if we don't talk about it for days, there's parts of it that come up, like, you know, like Grace, for my husband and for Grace, you know. And the other day, she's like, Mom, we need more chocolate chips and syrup. And did you get my tumor markers back? And everybody else would hear this conversation and be like, what is wrong with these people? Like, literally, chocolate chips, pancake syrup, tumor markers.
By the way, the tumor
same
markers.
Sentence, yelling from the kitchen to do it. And I'm like, the good news is my parents have gifted us with resiliency and a really good sense of humor. So we joke around about it because it's always there, but give yourself permission to embrace it or not embrace it, whatever it is, and just go with it. And I'm honored to do this work. And I'm okay with it, that it's pretty much 24/7.
I really identify with so much of what you just said, and I just really appreciate you. And I think so much of it is, this is my life, this is where it's at, and I think it's a really beautiful thing to just to have something come out of nowhere, completely change the direction of your life, and be like, and I'm okay with it. I wondered if you wanted to speak to what you're excited about right now at Rutgers and the research that's happening there.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I get excited about that because I dive into it and I might not understand it. But
Heard.
I try. But I always get excited when I'm like, can I repeat this back to you? Here's how I interpreted it. And the doctor's like, yeah, that was good. I'm like,
yeah.
You know, like, because I used, you know, like not even like a 0.5 of any of the terms that they used, but I think I got it across to a donor. But no, I'm excited. So Rutgers, for the past few years, actually because of some of the advocacy work that we did, they were able to start or set up they call it FORCE, Pediatric Hematology Oncology Center of Excellence. It's the only one in New Jersey. Really excited about that because it's, you know, really good things are happening. So expanding the team, which I think is super exciting. Also the attention to, there's more and more studies coming out, not only to causation related work being done at Rutgers, but also the survivorship piece.
Yes.
So it's not only there's research and science being done to better understand diagnoses, and then how to treat those with better, less toxic treatments. Like that is happening. And there's one study that's going on about giving a certain drug to kids that are about to have brain radiation. And I'm like, that hits close to home.
Yeah.
And, but it's to mitigate some of the cognitive deficits that may occur. So that's, like that's exciting work that's being done. But again, also the pieces I'm excited about is the build out of the psychosocial piece that they're doing and some of the population science things and how childhood cancer sometimes disproportionately affects certain cultures, races, as well as, again, that survivorship piece. So the psychosocial, the intervention with therapy, the intervention not only with the child, but then also the siblings.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in this. And actually Rutgers taught me that research isn't just all beakers and microscopes, that there's also that softer piece, which I never knew existed until Grace was in treatment. I didn't understand the whole child life specialist, psychosocial, never heard that before she was in treatment. And that there's research being done that way. So there's the science piece where it's different drugs, determining can they have better outcomes with some of these diagnoses with these kids. And then the softer piece where they're looking at different interventions that really help facilitate the survivorship and the psychosocial piece. So there's, I know there's not like too many specifics in there. I can go more into detail, but those are some of the things that are going on at Rutgers in Peds. And I'm really, really excited about that and honored to hopefully be able to continue to grow that and nurture that and support that, because lots of good work is being done. And there's such a care factor because it's a smaller organization, but such a care factor and one-on-one with these kids to help that. And because we are so diverse, actually, there's a lot of really good access to not only samples that those bench scientists can work with from a diversity population, but then also the impact it can have on different groups and the people that they see overall is really, that's like what I think excites me about being at Rutgers, is that they have those two parts, plus it can have such a profound impact because the diverse population that we serve.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, we just love you, and we love Rutgers, and we love this podcast, and we're so glad that you're able to come and join and talk with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel honored because I came through kind of the Rutgers system with both Grace and my husband. So I find hopefully it gives a little credibility because I've seen what they can do. I know what they can do because I've lived it and seen it. And I'm happy to perpetuate that.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I think it'd be great if our listeners wanted to learn more about either Rutgers or with Grace, but we'll start with Grace. Where can they go to learn more about what y'all are doing in your advocacy work?
Thank you. So one, I would say you can follow us on social media. Grace and I are not always the best about posting, but we do post things there, which is at With Grace Initiative. And then our website which is withgraceinitiative.org. And sign up for our newsletters because we'll send out, stuff and information for people to get involved. And I always say no involvement is too small. There's always opportunity. Yeah. And that's the other thing. Like, I feel like sometimes people, especially in this world, like, oh my God, I got to do it all. No. You could put a little pinky toe in and it's totally okay. You can put your whole foot in and it's totally okay. Again, it goes back to like the whole messaging, like give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Like don't sweat it. So there's that piece. And then right now for Rutgers, CINJ.org is all the Rutgers stuff. And if you just kind of like search Peds, it'll go into that and they're constantly updating information there. So, because I probably did not do a good job of explaining all the good things happening there, but really good. And anybody can always reach out to me. I'm happy to connect with anyone if that would help them.
Awesome. Well, I think you did an incredible job. I'm delighted.
So
so thank you for your time.
You.
And for our listeners, we are here because of kids like Grace. That's why we're here. That's what we do. So you can support our research by going to cannonballkidscancer.org. Or if you know a researcher like Aubrey does, you can go to our website as well, click on apply for grants and learn more about our grants process and how your researchers can apply for our funding.
Thank you so much for joining Game Over Cancer. Did you know that leaving a review helps us reach more listeners? So if you like Aubrey, would like to help us educate for change, go ahead and do that. Leave us a review. And if you can, share the podcast. We'd really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you joining and making a commitment to our fight. I'm Dana Nichols.
I'm Val Solomon.
And until next time, we'll see Casey.
See you later. Join us as we transform fear into courage and turn adversity into opportunities for change.
If you want to be involved in the conversations that create change in the world of pediatric cancer, take a moment, share, like, and subscribe.